Today, we're going to visit one of the most beautiful, but also the most snobbish and touristy places in Europe. We'll drive to Europe's highest railway station, face a barrage of Chinese tourists, and climb up a glacier to a mountain hut where they won't let you go in your boots. Today, we'll combine mass and adventure tourism. Our trip today is one of the most expensive you can indulge in Switzerland, and the many tourists we will meet will finally explain why Switzerland is such a rich country. The start of our journey lies on the southern side of the main Alpine Massif, while the Jungfrau can be climbed from the north, so we have to cross the mountain range. This is possible either in front of the Grimsel Pass, which is only possible in summer, or by car train through the Lochberg Tunnel. We choose the second option. It's quite simple. You arrive at the station, pay the fare, which for one car is 27 to 30 francs, and you can enjoy the very special feeling when the car is stationary but moving, and you feel the urge to grab the wheel and drive. The bottom station of the Grindelwald cable car looks more like an airport terminal. You have to get through the queue to get through the queue. The cable car runs from Grindelwald to the Cog railway station at Jungfrau. In 2020, the cable car completed the lower section of the railway and multiplied the number of tourists who reach Europe's highest railway station. At the time, there was a wave of criticism that it would become overcrowded. The criticism was not exaggerated. But with the price of a return ticket ranging from 170 to 220 francs, depending on the season, the Swiss simply couldn't resist such a money machine. If the first part of the journey by cable car was all about the beautiful views, on the train journey from the Glacier station, you will see nothing. Practically the entire railway line runs in a tunnel, and to give the photo-hungry tourists a bit of a taste, the train stops for 5 minutes at the IJsselmeer station, from which tunnels are driven to the surface. The local railway line is narrow gauge. The steepest gradient of the line is 25 degrees, and so the cars are a bit on a slant. The construction of the railway was already contemplated in 1860, and the talk stopped in 1896 when construction began. The inauguration came after an incredible 16 years by Swiss standards on August 1, 1912. So we are in the highest railway station in Europe at an altitude of 3,454 m. It doesn't look like it at all. It's more like a subway station, but there are terrible crowds. And so we just slowly move from the crowded station to the even more crowded elevator. If I can pass on one observation, the worst expedition you can meet is the Chinese. What sets them apart from other groups from Asia is a leader who aggressively and arrogantly brushes off tourists from other parts of the world as if he owns the location. He is followed by a cluster of disciplined and noisy louts. And so it came to pass that at one vantage point, there was already some Czech language of, let's say, the unsalonable type. The Chinese, obviously not a slavist, much less a bohemist, understood the content of the instruction. While we are enjoying the panoramas, let us remember that Jungfraujoch is the saddle between the peaks of Monch, and Jungfrau, translated as monk and virgin. For people with a vivid imagination, this invites all sorts of connotations. It is here where the longest glacier in the Alps begins, the Aletsch Glacier, the same glacier where I got so beautifully wet last year after a few kilometers down. The Sphinx Astronomical Observatory here is one of the highest in the world, and the whole place is called the Top of Europe. The saddle here is also the European watershed, now between the Rhine and Rhone basins. There was no glacier here in the Middle Ages, and there was even a road through the pass. People were then driven out of this place by the ice for several centuries before they decided to return here by tunnel. It's not often that I shoot in toilets.
A největší střet kultur odehrává se na zdejších toaletách.
At one of the local viewpoints, it is clearly visible which tourists come from places where they have seen snow only on TV and have no experience with moving on it.
Metody zdolávání svahu jsou různé, až kreativní. A Fogl pečlivě sleduje cizince s bagetou. Řád mokrého zadku získává. Vidíte v dáli začínat tu frontu? Tak ta fronta tady není jen tak na něco. Pokud si ji vystojíte, tak se můžete vyfotit. No neberte to za těch x desítek minut.
Otherwise, however, the comfort of the visitors is consistently taken into account, and those who do not want to take an unnecessary step from their point of view do not have to take many steps, even in the tunnel, connecting the viewpoints on opposite sides of the complex.
I na počátku ledovce je to takové turistické. Ovšem, kdo chce, může se projet 324 metrů po ledovci, nebo nad ledovcem. Bylo vtipnější, kdyby tam na konci nebyla brzda. A brzdí se zadkem.
To escape the snobbish Babylon for a while, we will take a shorter tour on the Alps glacier.
Po pár stovek metrů upozorňuje cedule ve 4 jazycích, že není dobrý nápad opouštět turistickou cestu, že může člověk spadnout do trhliny v ledovci. No a co myslíte, že je v okolí poťapáno?
The sign didn't exaggerate. It's visible just a few dozen yards away. So I continue in an orderly fashion along the path to the monk's Joshut hut on the edge of the glacier a few kilometers away. The Alps glacier currently measures 23 kilometers and covers 82 square kilometers. It is estimated that it holds 4 kilometers. It estimated that it holds 4/0 of all drinking water in Europe. Like other glaciers, the Alps glacier is not what it used to be. 30 years ago, it was longer and covered almost 50 square kilometers more.
A ti mravenečkové vespod, to jsou další účastníci naší výpravy. Konečně to taky začíná připomínat trochu vysokohorskou turistiku. Je trochu mrzuté, že nám před čtvrt hodinou zavřeli teplou kuchyni, no uvidíme.
There is a specialty at the local cottage, whose name I cannot pronounce for the second time. They won't let you in with your shoes on. To visit the local snack bar, incidentally with a pretty obnoxious Swiss-style service, you have to change your shoes. On the way back, let me tell you another interesting fact. According to the various Swiss websites, man returned to the Jungfrau Josch, occupied since the Middle Ages by a glacier, either in 1811 or in 1865, during the first ascent. If the second date is true, the first ascent came a few years after there was talk that a railway would have to be built. Turning from the glacier, we find the incredible. Someone has stolen all the tourists in the meantime. Not all of them. A few were left behind to spoil my shots.
Jo, teď mi tam vlezou.
We decided to rerun down by the last train. This turned out to be a very prudent decision. We can see the exhibits almost alone, For example, the distinctively stylized rendition of the surrounding landscape for those who are too lazy to go out. However, the most interesting and entertaining of the exhibitions is inside the glacier, the Ice Palace. It's a bit similar to the Ice Palace on the Little Matterhorn, but while the Little Matterhorn has a carpet on the ground, here we don't any. Again, I think of the tourists from the warm lands, helpless on snow. It must be quite an interesting sight to see this place the main traffic.
Všímejte si speciálního pohybu, který volí velitel výpravy, aby se tady neobtisknul. Je pravda, že ta poslední část byla trošičku rozmražená, takže klouzala o to víc. Ale hubu jsme si nenabil ani jeden.
And on an optimistic note, the report could have ended. I'll add that on the way back, we felt kind of lonely in the highest railway station in Europe.